So what do you listen for when you're going through here?
What am I listening for?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure that basically I'm listening to make sure that whatever work I do, no one ever hears.
Oh, God, you want it seamless.
Mm. So Will's listening. Will listens to the takes as she plays. Each vertical is a take as she plays, and he grades it as they go by.
Okay.
And I keep track of where we agree on what the sections are first, and then I keep track of where each section is by the time.
Right.
And then Will makes me a map of which sections he wants. So in this particular thing, he says, okay, so the first two sections he wants from take 2. Because he graded those really high. So I go over here and I look at take 2. I need this time from this time to this time on take 2, and I start to assemble what we call a composite. And so that's that's what I'm starting to do here, is build it out of all these different sections that Will said these are the ones that work the most for him. So basically that's what I'm doing. And then the work that I'm doing is basically I try and put the sections together and then make it as if it sounds like nothing was done.
Okay, gotcha. So you're taking pieces out of each take to make the final product.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And how do you, I mean, I assume the software helps you do this, but when you're going through and blending the pieces together or the takes together, what kind of massages are you doing to the takes to make them blend together? How do you keep them?
It's the same piano and the same player, so that helps it, and the same microphone. So all that stuff is consistent. So that helps a ton. It's not like you're doing things from different days. And then it's a matter of where you put it in time, how loud you make it, and how you make the actual transition, what's called a crossfade, but from one piece to the other.
Gotcha.
So when it used to be tape, you would actually, you'd have a piece of tape on this side with a chunk you want, and a piece of tape on this side, and you'd cut them both on a diagonal, put them together.
Really?
And so you'd have a little bit of each one happening. You know what I mean? So you'd have this piece of audio happening and continuing on while this piece of audio was kind of starting.
Yeah.
So those two signals are kind of crossfading.
Oh, gotcha.
So now we're doing it in the digital world. So I could zone, I'll show you. So if I get in really close here, you'll see that there's a little crossfade there.
Oh, I gotcha.
So the piece of audio coming from this side is going out, and the piece of audio on that side is coming in.
Okay, gotcha. So it blends really well.
It blends well, as long as you get the crossfade in the right spot.
And this is the Finale software you're using?
This is Pro Tools.
Oh, Pro Tools.
Yeah. Finale is really a notation software.
Oh, that's right. That's what Lynn uses sometimes to write her music. Yeah. She's thinking about using it. Right now she does it. You've seen that stuff that she does. Yeah. It's all by hand. She writes it down by pencil, which I still find just amazing. So what does the board do for you? She's playing. Are you doing anything with the board at all while she's playing?
No, the board, basically, there are 9 microphones out in the room, and so each of those microphones comes up on a fader, and I kind of have a setup that, sounds okay for these microphones right now, and then a little bit of reverb in there, so that when you stop it, you hear a little tail going on. I don't know if it's on out here. So kind of add a little bit of artificial space that happens after the notes.
Gotcha.
So that's in there all the time.
Okay.
So it adds a little bit of artificial space to the piano sound. And without that stuff, you're right on top of the piano. Or with it, it's more spacious, it has more air around it.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So you get this really intimate, close perspective on the piano with the microphones really in the piano, and then you put the reverb on it to give it back the spaciousness that you would have in classical music where they mic it from 20 feet away.
Gotcha.
So you kind of get the best, you get kind of a nice space around it, but you also get, really everything that's happening inside the machine of the piano.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, on our first day here, I was watching this right side of your soundboard, and these things here, these keys here were moving
around
by themselves. Yeah. So what's that all about?
Well, that's with a mix that has a lot of tracks going on. You do a lot of massaging, and so all that stuff gets played back as it's going along.
Oh,
so every time the fader moves, that's something I've done with my hand.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it just remembers that I did it at that time.
Gotcha.
So you'll have in dense compositions, you'll have 3 or 4 instruments that might be kind of competing for the same moment, and you're deciding who's going to kind of be the featured element there.
Right.
Like in a guitar solo, the guitar suddenly is a little louder in a guitar when you listen to a rock and roll record. The guitar suddenly comes up, and that's somebody bringing that fader up so that the guitar comes up.
Gotcha, so they can hear it better.
And then when the vocal comes back in, the vocal comes up a little bit, and the guitar goes back down a little bit under the vocal, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of kind of massaging that's happening.
Oh, very
all the
cool.
time as things are going by.
That is very, very cool.
You'll note, I mean, if you start to listen to records that way, you'll say, oh, wow, those, you'll hear drums get turned up with a big tom fills, but, the big tom fills happen, and those things come up, and they get panned left to right. And, so there's a lot of kind of massaging that goes on.
Interesting.
Not so much for a solo piano record.
Right.
But certainly in a larger production, there's a lot of kind of weaving that goes on.
It's interesting how all this stuff has been developed over the decades, I suppose, for lack of a better term, to make the music sound the best. I'm not sure if the best is the right word, or if it sounds, if it's made to sound the way people want to hear it. Does that make sense?
That's a chicken and an egg, right? I mean, because after a while, people, now people expect to hear auto-tune on vocals. People expect to hear vocals that are really in tune, because that's become it's hard to say. We can blame most of it on the Beatles at some point. Because,
oh, really?
Because at that time, that's where the microphones started getting closer to the instruments. It used to be, even with, the big band stuff in the 50s, they were miking the whole ensemble from, many feet away.
Yeah.
And then in the 60s, the microphones just got closer and closer and closer, until you're at this kind of thing where the microphones are on top of things. And you have, in rock and roll sessions, you have, a microphone an inch away from the snare drum, which is outrageously loud. And, if you put your ear there, you'd go deaf immediately.
Yeah.
But that's now the sound that we associate with a snare drum.
Yep.
You listen to an AC/DC record, or you listen to any of that kind of music, and it's like, bang, there's the snare drum. And that's the sound of the snare drum from an inch away.
Right.
Where you would never hear it. In reality, I mean, you'd have to be nuts to put your ear an inch away from a snare drum.
Exactly.
But that's the sound in a recorded record that we've come to know as a snare drum. And it's the same thing with a piano. We'd become very used to what our minds say, oh yeah, it's the sound of a piano. But most of us don't, if you sat at the piano and put microphones right next to her ears, it actually wouldn't sound that much like this. So what she's hearing when she's playing the piano sounds different from
what you're hearing out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with an acoustic guitar. The player who plays an acoustic guitar, the guitar has to be here. They're never hearing, a guitar builder.
Right, they're not hearing the sound from the outside.
Well, they're not hearing the face of the guitar is the thing that's designed to project the sound.
Right.
So an acoustic guitar player can never hear what the guitar builder intended them to, the guitar to sound like.
Gotcha.
Because it's just, you can't, unless you were playing the guitar this way and
like Jimi Hendrix.
Right. Well,
he was electric guitar, yeah.
But yeah, so the players' perspectives on their instruments are always different. Just like a drummer can never hear the snare drum or the kick drum, the bass drum, the way it's mic'd. They put microphones inside the kick drum.
Right.
You can't have your head inside a kick drum, but we all know that sound.
Yes, we do. It's a pretty darn good sound.
It's a pretty darn good sound. It's the sound of rock and roll, but it's obviously, once you start making a record, it's all construction. It's all fake.
Interesting.
And we just get used to the fake.
Yeah.
It's like, you look at a model who's completely... There was a great video a while ago of what they did to a model to put her on the cover of a magazine.
Oh, really?
It was a YouTube video, and it went through, they showed you, in about 30 seconds, just fast, they showed you her walking in, getting the hair and makeup, and then the pictures, and then going into Photoshop, and slimming her, and making your... And just like...
So what's the point of being a model?
What's the point of it?
Yeah, what's she got over anybody else? She was in the right spot at the right time?
Yeah, or she's very photographable somehow, and then easily to manipulate afterwards. But the fact is that what we hear and what we see is all manipulated.
Very interesting.
And a lot of time, in this case, what we're trying to do is we're trying to manipulate it for the best artistic intent, and we're trying to actually make it sound like a piano.
Gotcha.
But there are plenty of things where what it actually is irrelevant.
So what is your equipment you've got here? You've got the soundboard, and you've got your...
This is basically a big remote control for the computer. This is... No sound is going through this.
So this is not considered a soundboard?
Well, there are lots of audio consoles where the sound is actually going through but this is really just a remote control for the computer. Everything is in the computer.
Okay.
In this particular case.
Gotcha.
So the microphone's out in the other room, and then the microphone preamps, which are here, which turn the signal from the microphones up enough for us to be able to record them.
Right.
And then these are the converters that convert the signal from the microphone preamps into numbers.
Okay.
So that the computer can understand.
Right, we're going binary there.
Yeah, and then there's a converter down below that turns it back from numbers back into a waveform that we can listen to
Okay.
out here. So, and that's it.
Okay, I got one more question. I'll let you go back to work.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go have lunch.
Okay, so you've been doing this for 20 years, is what you said, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, 20 years. So you have been in the age of tape
Yeah.
and vinyl
Yeah.
and in the age of digital.
Yeah.
Can you tell the difference between a vinyl record and a digital record? If you were going to listen to Lynn or anybody else on...
Could I tell that? Well, yeah, because vinyl has background noise. I mean, that's just that's vinyl.
Okay.
It's band limited. Like you can't put a lot of bass on vinyl, or you pop the needle out of the groove. So like and it's also band limited on the top. You can't
Right.
have extreme high frequencies on vinyl, just because
I did not know that.
Yeah, well, the needle is only so big, and,
Right.
and so there are limitations to how fast you can make it move, and
Gotcha.
limitations to what you can actually cut in the vinyl in terms of vibrating.
Okay.
So there's usually, yeah, you could tell the difference.
Okay.
But which one sounds more appealing to your ear is a whole other question.
Okay.
You know, there's something nice sometimes about the softness that you get from vinyl. You know, softness
yes.
in a good way.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah, I can understand that completely.
Whereas I think digital, it can be unforgiving, but it can also be very revealing.
Right.
Analog tape has a little bit of background noise all the time. It has certain, if you hit it hard, it kind of compresses. It doesn't let really loud things happen. It kind of softens the really loud stuff. These are all generalities, but it's, you know, it has a sound that you can use, and it's a great sound for rock and roll. It's a great sound for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
For this kind of thing, this is great. And editing, you know, if you need to edit, and that's certainly Will's model. Will's been doing this kind of editing his whole career. This is how he works.
Right.
And this is so much easier because you can give him, okay, here's this, you know, you can A/B two different approaches, two different sections of music. Trying to do that with tape is a nightmare.
Right.
You know,
Right.
well, do you like, you know, these 30 seconds or these 30 seconds? And then, you know, you have to cut them and whatever. So it's
Gotcha.
way easier to do it this way.
Very cool.
And it doesn't see, in terms of his success with this kind of music, it doesn't, you know, the sonics are, the music it says so much more than what the music sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.